Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the Take for Market Rebellion. A wild ride continues. It's been going on for weeks now. And take a look at yesterday. Just another amazing day. Pressure on the markets right out of the gate. A lot of concern about COVID and all the different variants and everything else. We started off and we accelerated to the downside. We were down as much as 600 plus points yesterday on the Dow. You look over at the Nasdaq, similar. It's down about 300 points. You look over at the S&P. That was down significantly as well. The interesting part was we did get a little bit of a rally off of those lows. We did not close on the lows, but here's the really interesting thing. It was a mirror image of each other. Whether you're looking at the S&P, the Dow, or the Nasdaq, there was no dislocations yesterday. And when you look at this, the rally back off of being down 600 plus to finish the day down 430 points on the Dow, still terrible, but much better and improved than what it was, down about 1.25%. I look over at the Nasdaq, also finished down 1.25%. It was down almost 200 points, almost 188 was the exact number yesterday, so almost 200 points for the Nasdaq. And then you look over at the S&P, same old story, down about not quite 1.25%, but 1.1% or so thereabouts, just to give you a little bit of an idea. So if we're going to move 1% every single day, and this is something I try to hammer home all the time, and you look at the S&P, we moved a little over 1% yesterday. A lot of folks would say, wow, I think the volatility index should be a lot higher. Well, at points in the day when things were shifting around a little bit more than that, we were seeing the volatility index actually spike up towards that 25, 26, 27 area, but pulled all the way back to close underneath 23. Now, why is it even that high? Well, because of the fact you look at the intraday and you add that into it as well, that all just sort of formulates into this area of where we are with volatility right now. And obviously there's some nervousness, so there is some emotion involved there as well. And why were we getting hit so hard yesterday? Well, with crude down towards 67 at the start of the day, finishing the day about 68, there was some improvements obviously, but still nonetheless off significantly from where we were just not too many days previous. 10-year got all the way down in that 1.4 range. It actually closed around 1.42. That's improvement a little bit, not a whole lot. But the interesting thing was when I look at the volumes yesterday, we talked about the volatility. We do oftentimes connect that with volumes. The volume was way off where we've been, well underneath. Matter of fact, previously we had traded nearly 50 million contracts. We've been in the mid to upper 40 million contract range. Matter of fact, that's about where we are averaging. Yesterday, 36 million contracts, a little bit slow. As a matter of fact, only one name yesterday over 1 million contracts trading. That was Apple, traded 1.4 million contracts. Nothing else. There were some close, but nothing else over 1 million contracts. Just to give you a little bit of background and an understanding of what we're seeing from the skeleton of these markets that we're trading in right now. Energy was down as much as 3%. That did improve. It finished down closer to 1%. Financials were down much over that 2% area. Did improve, but not quite as much. Obviously, you see where the markets actually closed up. We had a lot of improvements. We saw improvements throughout the day in other areas, materials and so forth. But you look over at technology, that was down 1.25%. You look at the semiconductors, that was getting pressured on a little bit. So they were dragging down the Nasdaq as well. So what were some of the big movers yesterday? Well, you look at that beta energy world, and we talk about this all the time. You get a down day like we had, energy is going to be down, but the beta names within energy certainly getting hammered yesterday. The usual suspects, once again, APA and Occidental and Devon and those kind of names, Marathon, all those names definitely getting hammered pretty hard yesterday. Cruise ships on the positive side. That was something that did stand out for me, at least anyway. We were looking at Carnival Cruise and Norwegian and those names actually finishing in positive territory. Airlines were actually trading better than you might be expecting, with American and United Airlines specifically stood out for me. But the negatives were certainly there. The leadership to the downside led by a lot of different names. Specifically look at something like a Moderna yesterday, down 6%. I look also at some of the other names, the Chinese names under some huge pressure as well. PDD and NetEase and Trip.com and Baidu and those kinds of names. Caterpillar affecting the Dow in a big way with a name like that being down 3%. Oh, and as usual, Peloton down another 9% yesterday. I mean, it's just been a hammering that we've seen in certain specific names as well. Oracle taking a bit of a hit. A lot of people just kind of scratching their heads on this one after the potential of what's going on, acquisition and all the other things. And Oracle, not one of those high multiple names, but getting hammered to the downside. I look at Nucor actually getting a little bit of a hit as well. That's been a name that's actually been up and down. It seems like every other day moving in the other direction. So that's kind of the backdrop of yesterday. That feeds us into today. So we do start off with a pretty decent rally, up over 300 points in the pre-market. You look over at the NASDAQ, up over 200 points in the pre-market. S&P up nearly 50 points. A slide happened almost immediately to the downside, although the Dow was continuing to rise, at least in the first 20 or 30 minutes of the day. We got up over 400 points. NASDAQ has not seen 200 yet. It's actually started to slip just a little bit, slipped a little bit more. Last I looked, as a matter of fact, NASDAQ was up about 90 points, which is the lower end of where we were today. As I say, in the pre-market, we were up over 200 points. You look over at the Dow, starting to make a little bit of a move, and then sort of trading sort of in a range, I guess you could call it right now, between 3.25 and about 375. So what are some of the leadership? What's really pushing the Dow right now that we're not seeing in some of the other areas? Well, it's names like Boeing, it's Nike. Obviously, Nike had some really great numbers. People really liked what they reported. You had Boeing, you had Nike, you had American Express, you've got Visa, you got Disney. Those names definitely are very big, powerful names that are pushing the Dow to the upside. But you look over at the S&P, just slipping. I mentioned we were up nearly 50 points. I looked just a few moments ago before we came on here, we were up a little over 30 points. So definitely off of some of those highs. Why are we seeing some of the movement to the positive side? Well, we got oil, we got crude actually recovering, getting back up over 70. You got the 10-year pushing towards 1.5 at a 147. You got Bitcoin with a little bit of a movement as well, up there trading near that 49,000 level. Volatility just kind of hanging around this 22 level. And it's interesting because you would have expected to see a little bit maybe of a pullback, just slightly, just because of what we were seeing early on with some of the positives of the marketplace, and not that same kind of movement as yesterday. The Dow, yes, but in the other cases, not quite to the same degree. So financial started off a little bit, about 1.5% higher. That started to move a little bit better and actually improved slightly at least. Technology was up a little over 1.5, or a little over, call it 1.25%. That got cut in half. That's what we were seeing. And that's what's part of the movement of the NASDAQ. You'll also look over at semiconductors, up nearly 2% early on, and then now have slipped back a little bit, up about 1%, probably a little bit more than that. You look over at FANG names. They're up for the most part, but pretty close to flat. Not a lot of movement there. If you go across the FANG names, very close to the flat line, at least for today. What's not near the flat line is some of the other numbers that we got out there. When you look at something like a Micron up 9%, what a monstrous move that is, as that stock has absolutely been on fire. And those earnings numbers really did catch the market and give a little bit of an elevation to the stock. Nike, as I mentioned, that was up about 6%. We are seeing the airlines trade pretty nicely. Again, it's United, it's Delta, really have, and American having a pretty nice day. You have Royal Caribbean, you've got CCL, you've got a lot going on with the cruise ships once again. A little bit surprising. In that semiconductor area, we are seeing not just Micron, but you're seeing KLAC, you're seeing Applied Materials, you're seeing AMD, all in positive territory, having a pretty decent day, along with some of those Chinese names that we've been talking about, the Trip.coms and JD and PDD, all those kind of names, helping to lift that up just a little bit. But what's not getting lifted up? Moderna down about 5%, Pfizer down about 5%, Zoom down, Peloton once again down, Merck down, J&J. You get the idea. Some of those healthcare names that had such a great day now giving some of that back. So got two unusuals for you, and then we're done with the take for today. I will be back with the take tomorrow, and we'll see you on the halftime report tomorrow, not today. So a little bit of an easier day for me as far as some of the obligations that I've got. So backed, BKKT. This is a name that we have seen in the past. This is a name that's been absolutely hammered, by the way. We're talking about digital assets here when we're talking about this name and the trading of those digital assets. So the low and the high of the range over the last 52 weeks, about $8 to about $50. Where are we trading right now? Just over $9 a share, about $9.20. We did have a buyer today of 12,000 of the December 23rd, 11.5 calls. I thought that was interesting enough. And by the way, I always like to take a look and see, well, is there something a little bit closer to where the stock is trading that's not completely different price range and all the rest of that? I think if you have much more understanding, you have a little more education about it, you can take a look and see what I'm talking about there. But you can slide down a little bit from those 11 and a half calls that they're buying, a little bit close to where the stock is, and not paying a whole lot more. But what were they buying? It was the 11 and a half calls that expire on Thursday, actually, not Friday, the 23rd, Thursday, and 12,000 of those, 10 cents up to about 30 cents. I also had, and we mentioned the airlines. How about United Airlines? Trading about 43 bucks, a little bit more than $43. We had a buyer of 8,600 of the December 23rd. Again, this is this Thursday, today already being Tuesday. The 44 strike calls, 28 cents up to about 65 cents for those calls. So pretty good size, 8,600 of those. We talk about BKKT, we got 12,000 of those. There's starting to see a little bit more activity in the unusual options. It started off very, very slow. First 15 or 20 minutes, extremely slow. Now we're seeing a little bit of an acceleration. So we'll see that throughout the day. And John will be talking about that 3 at 3 later on this afternoon, I'm sure. Folks, have a great day of trading. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.